He begged me to pose as his long-dead daughter, just to give his dying wife peace. I knew it was all a lie, yet I agreed. Because deep down, I too longed to be claimed by a father. Mr. White begged me to pretend to be his daughter. His wife was in the final stages of cancer, and her only remaining wish was to be reunited with her long-lost child. In truth, their daughter had died years ago, but Mr. White didn't have the heart to tell her. And by some twist of fate, I looked strikingly like his wife. I said, "Fine. But you must host a formal reunion banquet for me. Invite the Clark family. Tell them this daughter they never cherished, there are others who do." The biggest regret of my life was that the Clark family never held a proper reunion banquet for me. Even after returning home for 3 years, outsiders still assumed I was merely an adopted daughter. "I really don't understand," they said. "Why would the Clark family bring home an adopted daughter just to take attention away from their real one?" Poor Lorena Clark. My father clearly heard such comments, but said nothing to defend me. Instead, with a cold face, he told me, "I told you. Lorena fulfilled your filial duties for 18 years. You owe her. If you could just be a good older sister, like your brother, love her, spoil her, and never let her feel even a hint of grievance, I'd host a reunion banquet for you. But you still haven't learned to be grateful. You're all thorns." I sneered. Then shouldn't she be the one thanking me, for suffering 18 years in her place? My father flew into a rage and hurled a teacup at me. Boiling water splashed across my face, scalding, stinging. My mother didn't shield me. Instead, she pulled me aside and scolded, "How can you say something so bitter and harsh? No wonder your father is angry. It's not Lorena's fault you were switched at birth. If you keep up this attitude, don't even dream about us ever hosting a banquet to acknowledge you as our real daughter." My brother, heartbroken and irritated, sighed from the sofa, "Shiva Clark, is it really that hard to just bow your head and apologize to Dad? Why can't you be obedient like Lorena?" All I did was speak the truth, yet to them, I was stubborn, ungrateful, irredeemable. I wiped the hot tea from my face, trying to hold back the tears burning in my eyes. The sorrow was unbearable. Looking at the people who shared my blood, my father, my mother, my brother, I felt my heart turn completely cold. Summoning all the grief I'd swallowed for 3 years, I shouted, "I'll never learn, and I don't want to. If you're so disappointed in me, then fine, this so-called real daughter of the Clark family, I quit. Isn't that what you want?" My father slammed the table. The sound was deafening. "You dare threaten me with this?" I let out a bitter laugh. "It's not a threat. I mean it. From now on, you're no longer my father." I always thought it would be hard to say those words, because I had always longed for a real home. But once I said them out loud, it wasn't so hard after all. Even the tight knot in my heart began to loosen. That's right. I was done being the so-called true heiress. Let the fake heiress have her throne, I wouldn't be the villain in her story anymore. No more groveling for love that would never come. No more self-destruction in the name of family. That night, I booked a train ticket back to the orphanage. Early the next morning, I left the Clark family's group chat, deleted all contact numbers, and dragged my suitcase out of that house. They thought I was just throwing a tantrum, that I'd never really dare to leave. No one came after me. So, I walked a long way to the bus stop with my suitcase, took a ride to the train station, and sat in the waiting hall. That's when I received a call from an unfamiliar number. It was Mr. White, begging me to pretend to be his daughter. "My wife is dying of cancer," he said. "Her last wish is to see the daughter we lost. The truth is, our daughter died a long time ago. But I couldn't tell her. I told her the child had been kidnapped. You look just like her. I want to give her peace before she goes. And when I saw your post announcing your break with the Clark family, I thought, maybe this is fate. The gates of the White family, DC's most powerful household, are open for you." DC's top family? Of course I knew who they were. They had more wealth, more power than the Clarks. And yet, once you enter the world of the elite, it's hard to escape. I had just managed to free myself from that abyss. I wasn't ready to leap into another. Besides, I'd already seen what it meant to have wealthy parents. When they hadn't found me yet, I was their deepest regret. But once they brought me home, what I got wasn't love, it was pain. It was the perfect example of how someone once cherished like a precious mark could turn into an ugly scar. I was tired. Tired of offering my heart, only to have it trampled. I refused without hesitation. "I'm sorry. I can't agree to this." But then, I heard Mr. White's voice, low, hoarse, pleading, and the chaotic sounds of a hospital in the background. "Can't you reconsider? I'll pay you. Name your price. 1 million a day? 2 million? 3? 5? Miss Clark. I'm begging you. This is my wife's dying wish. It's the last thing I can do for her, as her husband." That voice was so humble, so desperate, it was hard to believe this was the same man known as the ruthless master of DC's most powerful family. They say President White is infamous for doting on his wife. Now, for her sake, he was willing to throw away all his pride and beg me. Holding the phone, I didn't know what to say. Then another voice came through. Low, clear, and warm, but just as humble. Miss Clark, this is Edward White. If you're willing to be my sister, I'll give you anything you want. Please, my mother really needs you. She doesn't have much time. If you can help her leave this world without regret, my father and I will be forever grateful. And from now on, if you ever run into trouble in DC, we'll protect you. I remained silent, but something in me had already begun to shift. I had met the White family before, back when I was still at the orphanage. Mr. and Mrs. White had visited with their son Edward, doing charity work. They donated a new dormitory and a library. They brought us thick winter coats, hand warmers, and installed air conditioners and heaters. That winter was the first I spent without frostbite, without shivering through the nights. I never forgot that. I remembered Mrs. White, elegant, always smiling. So beautiful, so gentle. I couldn't believe she had cancer. She must be in terrible pain. Maybe, just maybe, my presence could ease that pain. Maybe I could give her the peace she needed. I'm not someone who forgets kindness. If my birth parents preferred the fake heiress, then fine. I'd go be someone else's fake heiress. I couldn't help but wonder, how would they react then? After thinking it over for a moment, I found myself blurting out, almost like someone else had spoken through me, okay, I agree. But I have one condition, you must throw me a grand reunion banquet, something the whole city will talk about. I don't want to be a daughter kept in the shadows. I want to be acknowledged, publicly, proudly. And invite the Clark family too. Let them see that the daughter they never cherished, others do. Upon hearing my agreement, Mr. White's voice trembled with excitement. No problem. I promise you, it'll be the grandest event in DC, every elite family will be there, including the Clarks. Where are you right now? I'll send Edward to pick you up. Come be my daughter today, alright? I'll give you $5 million a day. I took a deep breath and said, okay, but I don't want money. What I want is, love. Love? Yes. Fatherly love. A brother's love. I've never had that, not once in my life. And now, I want to feel it. Is that too much to ask? I clenched my fists, breath unsteady, doing everything I could to keep my voice from sounding like a love-starved beggar. But Mr. White just chuckled, amused by my careful tone. He softened his voice and said gently, of course. Absolutely. Since we're calling you our daughter now, we'll give you all the love you've missed. I'd heard those words before, from the Clark family. But they were always just that, words. Big promises, empty as air. Anyone can paint a beautiful lie. So I didn't dare hope. Don't say things you can't keep. I've learned to hate being given hope only to have it crushed. I'm at the train station, I said. You can have my brother come pick me up. After ending the call, I cancelled my train ticket and headed toward the platform to wait for Edward. Soon, a friend request popped up on WeChat. It was Edward. I accepted, adding a note, brother. He tried to add me to the White family's group chat. At first, I hesitated, hovering over the button without clicking. But then I saw his latest post, found my long-lost sister, she's real. I'm finally a big brother. Don't be jealous, everyone. You can't compete with this happiness. Ha ha ha. Even through a screen, I could feel his joy. The White family had no intention of hiding me. It was nothing like when I'd first returned to the Clark family. My biological brother Patrick was so embarrassed by my background, he never even mentioned me on social media. That barren place in my heart suddenly felt a spark of warmth. Not wanting to spoil the moment, I tapped accept and entered the family group chat. Edward, Mom, look. I wasn't lying, we found her. Our family of 4 is finally complete. Ms. White, really? Don't lie to me. Edward, it's true. Ask Dad if you don't believe me. Mr. White, sweetheart, it's real. We found our daughter. I even arranged a secret DNA test to surprise you. You can ask our precious girl herself, can't she confirm? Those 2 words, precious daughter, warmed me more than I could say. Eagerly, I typed in the group, it's true, Mom. My name is Shiva White. From Wild Shiva, to Shiva Clark, now to Shiva White. I was like a stray leaf adrift on the current. Wild Shiva was the name the orphanage director gave me. He once said that orphanage kids needed to be like wild grass on the plains, tough, able to grow strong even without sunshine or care. Because Wild Shiva, no matter how unloved or abandoned, could still survive the fiercest wind and rain. But even wild grass, as resilient as it may be, sometimes envies the flowers in the greenhouse. Yearns for warmth. For tenderness. Suddenly, the screech of tires broke the stillness near me. I looked up, expecting Edward. Instead, out of the car stepped my real brother, Patrick. His brows furrowed slightly as he strode toward me. He hadn't even reached me before his voice rose. Shiva, are you crazy? Just because we didn't publicly announce you as the real daughter, you storm off like this? Why do you care so much what others think? I know you're my real sister, isn't that enough? Enough, my ass. What a joke. To protect Lorena from even the slightest discomfort, they refused to announce my true identity. And I was the one left to suffer. I couldn't help laughing. Who do you think you're talking to? Still acting like you're my brother? That's cute. Patrick clearly hadn't expected the girl who used to follow him around like a puppy to snap so fast. There was a flicker of panic in his eyes. But he quickly collected himself, snatching my suitcase and grumbling, "Quit pretending. I checked already, you cancelled your ticket. You're obviously waiting for me to pick you up. If you had any guts, you'd leave for good and never come back." I stared at him blankly. Who said I'm standing here waiting for you? If it weren't for my new dad and brother reaching out, I'd already be on that train, gone for good. I had no interest in wasting words. You should go. My brother's coming to get me. Patrick burst out laughing, his lips curling in mockery. Your brother? Who? Besides me, who else would even want to be your brother? What, you think you're some prized jewel or something? Who said no one wants to? A clear, unfamiliar, yet gentle voice cut in from behind. Someone tapped me lightly on the shoulder. I turned, startled. Who? A tall, refined man looked down at me and smiled, gently tousling my hair. He was taller than Patrick. More handsome. His eyes were kind. And he smiled as he said, I'm your long-lost big brother, Edward. He grabbed my suitcase from Patrick and took my hand. Come on. I'm here to take you home. Patrick's face darkened instantly. His eyes widened in disbelief. Edward? Say that again, whose brother are you? Edward stepped in front of me and smiled mischievously. Was I not clear enough? Then let me spell it out. Patrick, the girl you Clarks raised as an adopted daughter? She's actually the long-lost biological daughter of the White family. He held up a document. A DNA test, genuine and certified. Thanks for raising my little sister for the past 3 years. But from now on, we'll take it from here. Patrick's face turned every shade of red, blue, and green. He was fuming, glaring at that piece of paper like he wanted to rip Edward apart. But instead of feeling flustered, I suddenly felt an overwhelming sense of relief, like a breeze had swept through my chest. I blinked my eyes playfully and asked with mock innocence, wait, wasn't I just your adopted daughter in the Clark family? Now that I found my real brother, what's the issue? With my real brother here, why would I ever go with you? Edward likely still believed I was just the adopted daughter of the Clarks. With the forged DNA test in hand, he thought he held irrefutable proof. He played along with my words and casually cast Patrick a dismissive glance. Exactly. You're just the unwanted stand-in brother. Even if you're related, how can you compete with me? Patrick's face flushed a deep, furious red. His fingers clenched tightly, knuckles cracking. It looked like he was just 1 second away from punching Edward in the face. I immediately stepped in front of Edward, shielding him. That clear, visible distinction of closeness was like fuel thrown on fire. Patrick narrowed his eyes, staring at me for a long while. Then suddenly, he sneered. So this is what it's about. You brought someone here just to get under my skin, didn't you? Well done, Shiva. You've succeeded. But I'm warning you, if you walk away with Edward now, then don't ever think of calling me your brother again. He clearly believed I didn't have the courage to defy him for real. After all, for the past 3 years, Patrick's nickname for me on WeChat had always been, Clingy Puppy Sister. No matter how busy I was, I always came running the second he called. Once, he was out drinking with friends and called me at 3 a.m. I crawled out of bed in the middle of the night to go get him, only to overhear him in the hallway outside the private booth, laughing with his friends. Shiva looks at me with those pitiful, eager eyes, like a little puppy begging for affection. It's adorable. Even Lorena can't match that. I could call her at 3 in the morning and she'd still come running. Clingy Puppy Sister isn't just a nickname, it's the truth. I figured, right now, he must be thinking something similar again. Shiva could never leave me for real. She's just throwing a tantrum, using Edward to make me jealous. But this time, I would show him, with action, not words. Patrick, you were wrong about me. I would never again humiliate myself just to earn your affection. I'd no longer be the pathetic little sister you flaunted before your friends for amusement. Lifting my eyes, I turned to my handsome new brother, Edward, and said softly, Brother, let's go. Edward took my hand and led me toward a sleek, understated Maybach parked nearby. He opened the passenger door for me and motioned for me to get in. I stared at the seat, and suddenly, my nose stung with emotion. Patrick had never allowed me to sit in his front passenger seat. That spot belonged exclusively to Lorena. He had a thing about cleanliness. If I so much as ate a snack in his car, he'd blow up on me. But somehow, Lorena could eat anything, make a mess, and he wouldn't say a word. I had complained. Protested. He'd just snap, Lorena has hypoglycemia. She'll faint if she doesn't eat. Do you have hypoglycemia? No. I had stomach problems. Back in the orphanage, hunger had left me with chronic pain. But once, on a long 8-hour family road trip, I tried to eat a piece of bread to ease the discomfort. Patrick slammed the steering wheel and barked, "How many times do I have to tell you, no eating in my car?" I tried to reason, but I get stomach aches when I'm hungry. Oh, so your stomach is made of gold now? Hold it in. Eat at the next service station. Edward noticed the tears welling up in my eyes and asked in concern, "Are you crying?" I quickly shook my head. "No, it's nothing. Can I eat something in your car?" "Of course you can. Are you hungry? I can run inside and get you something. What would you like?" "No need. I have some bread in my bag." Satisfied, I lifted my foot to step into the car. That's when Patrick stormed over, grabbed my wrist tightly. "Shiva, you've gone too far this time. No one to stop. The more I try to coax you, the worse you behave. Quit being dramatic and come home with me, now." I yanked my hand free and clutched my stomach, vividly recalling that painful ride on the highway. Feigning discomfort, I said deliberately, "Oh no. My stomach hurts, and I need to eat something. My new brother says I can sit in the front seat and eat comfortably. But in your car, I'd have to starve and endure pain. So tell me, why on earth would I choose to go with you and suffer?" Edward looked even more worried. "You're having stomach pain? Quick, get in the car and eat. I'll take you to the hospital." "Okay." Patrick looked like he was making the hardest decision of his life. "Fine. I'll let you eat in my car. Happy now?" He said it as if he were granting me a grand favor, like I should kneel and thank him. I couldn't help but laugh. Bitterly. "Patrick, who's the pathetic one now?" "Too bad," I said calmly. "I don't care anymore." And with that, I turned away, not sparing him another glance, and stepped into Edward's car. Just then, my father called Patrick. "Did you pick up your sister yet? I bet she was just trying to scare you. She's probably already followed you home with her tail tucked between her legs." I knew it. She wouldn't really run away, just a little girl throwing a tantrum. Talk to her on the way. Don't spoil her so much, or she'll pull this trick every time she gets upset. Patrick stared blankly at the car now driving away with his sister inside. His heart felt hollow. Like something important, something he'd never valued, was now gone. And worse, he couldn't get it back. Hearing his father's dismissive tone only fueled his frustration. "Shiva is my real sister. What's so wrong about comforting her when she's upset? Why is Lorena allowed to be spoiled, but my own sister isn't?" Jason Clark sounded baffled. "Are you raising your voice at your father? She throws a fit, runs away, and now you're the one feeling guilty?" Patrick growled lowly in frustration. "Dad, be honest with yourself, did Shiva really have no reason to be angry?" For years, Shiva had been the one who always gave without asking. She never got anything in return, and yet never made a fuss. Patrick had mistaken that as her being easy. That she didn't need comfort. Didn't need fairness. But now that he wanted to make it up to her. She had already chosen Edward instead. It gnawed at him. If Dad hadn't refused to publicly acknowledge Shiva as his daughter all these years, would Edward have been able to step in with a fake DNA test and humiliate him like that? Still, Patrick convinced himself that the little brat was just being petty. Let her stay out for a couple of days. No way she'd really never come home again. No way she'd really abandon her big brother forever. Patrick was brimming with confidence when he spoke again, his tone much more relaxed. "I didn't bring her home. Shiva went with Edward. But whatever, you're right. The more we spoil her, the more she acts out. Let her stay out for a few days to cool off. Once she's calmed down, she'll come crawling back, and that's when we'll teach her a proper lesson." But little did he know, just 2 days later, the entire elite social circle of DC was buzzing with one piece of breaking news. Turns out, Shiva, the adopted daughter of the Clark family, is actually the long-lost real heiress of the White family. The White family has already sent out formal invitations. They're throwing a lavish reunion banquet for Shiva Clark. No, it's Shiva White now. Looks like Patrick's clingy little sister has become Edward's precious one. Guess she's done licking Patrick's boots. Someone even came to Patrick directly to confirm the news. Patrick's pupils contracted sharply. "What did you just say?" "Say that again." The person immediately sent him the White family's digital invitation. Patrick took one look at it, and almost smashed his phone in disbelief. Shiva was his real sister. What gave the White family the right to host such a grand event for her? Rumors? That has to be a damn rumor. I'm calling Shiva right now, she'll clear this up herself. This is all just a misunderstanding. He called her. No answer. The call sank into silence like a stone dropped in deep water. Moments later, his mother called him. "Patrick, what is going on?" The White family sent us an invitation to Shiva's reunion banquet. But I carried that girl in my belly for 10 months, how can she suddenly become the White family's long-lost daughter? Patrick replied, it must be that Shiva wants to come home but can't bring herself to say it. She probably roped the White family into staging this whole thing to make us panic. There's no way they'd actually throw her a reunion banquet. She's not even their biological daughter. I'm going over there now. I'll bring Shiva back. On the phone, Mrs. Clark said cautiously, wait. Lorena said maybe the White family was deceived by Shiva. Your father already took her to the White family estate. He's going to expose her lies, personally. By then, I had already been living in the White family home for 2 days. Ms. White was gravely ill, yet she insisted on handling everything related to me herself, personally and meticulously. She prepared my room, made my bed, even bought me new clothes. There were housekeepers for all of this, yet she refused to rest. Her eyes were always a little red, as she whispered, don't stop me. I've never done anything for you before. Now, every little thing I do might be my last. I just wish heaven would give me a little more time, so I could make it all up to you. She even heard I liked ice cream, and insisted on making it for me herself. I felt both guilty and moved. I asked Mr. White quietly, shouldn't you stop her? She really needs bed rest. But Mr. White didn't stop her. Instead, he rolled up his sleeves and helped her. The doctors said she doesn't have much time left. Rather than spend it lying in a hospital bed with no dignity, I'd rather let her do what makes her happy. As long as she's smiling, that's all that matters. Last night, Ms. White even brought a blanket and cuddled next to me in bed. She asked me about my life in the orphanage. I picked a few lighter stories to share. But she gently stroked my face, eyes red from crying. I know you're the kind who only shares joy, not sorrow. My sweet Shiva must have gone through so much. Her words made me want to cry too. In the 3 years I'd been back at the Clark home, not once had my birth mother asked me about my life before. It was as if those years in the orphanage were a shameful past, something best left buried. They were always praising Lorena for filial devotion for 18 years. But no one ever considered this. If it weren't for Lorena's biological mother swapping us and tossing me into an orphanage, how much suffering could I have been spared? And now, they wanted me to be grateful to Lorena? Not only could I not resent her, I had to love her like a real sister? How was that even fair? I leaned into Ms. White's arms and whispered, Mom, can you hold me for a little while? I'd seen Lorena lean sweetly into my birth mother's embrace countless times. I had envied that closeness. Craved it. But between me and my mother, there had always been an invisible wall. No matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't break through. Ms. White opened her arms and gently pulled me into her embrace, as if she were soothing a baby. Should I sing you a lullaby? She asked with a warm smile. I chuckled through tears. Mom, I'm not a little kid anymore. I rested my head on her shoulder and closed my eyes, letting the warmth sink in. So this is what it feels like to be held by a mother. Mr. White said my arrival had healed his wife. But in truth, it was Ms. White who was healing me, with her unconditional love. Yet, she was already in the final stages of cancer. Her health was declining rapidly. She pushed through the pain every day, pretending she wasn't hurting in front of me. And the more I felt her warmth, the more I craved it. I wanted to be the daughter she'd be proud of. I wanted to stay by her side every moment I could. But of course, Lorena and my father just had to come barging in at the worst possible time. Trying to ruin this short-lived mother-daughter bond. Trying to expose the truth. But Lorena couldn't even get through the front gate. Edward went outside to deal with them. I hid just inside the doors, listening. I heard Lorena's urgent voice, Edward, you've been tricked by my sister. That DNA test is definitely fake. She's absolutely not your real sister. I'm telling you the truth. Lorena was so confident, so righteous. Just like back at the Clark home, when she'd always jump out to oppose me, then enjoy the moment when everyone, Dad, Mom, and Patrick, sided with her. She always got the last word. But not this time. Edward didn't even blink. But just behind me, I heard Mr. White mutter in a low, cold voice, she found out? Edward couldn't even handle this properly. I quickly stepped in to defend my new brother. Dad, it's not his fault. Not his fault? Mr. White frowned deeply. He couldn't even forge a DNA test properly, got found out by your sister. I hesitated, then finally confessed, actually, I am the real daughter of the Clark family. No matter how perfect the forged report looks, Lorena would have recognized it's fake. Mr. White was stunned. You're the Clark family's real daughter? Not adopted. I let out a bitter laugh. Surprised? My dad was afraid that announcing my true identity would make Lorena look bad in public. They didn't want her to suffer even a sliver of embarrassment, so they chose to wrong me instead. They wanted me to be the good sister who loves and spoils Lorena. If I couldn't do that, then no reunion banquet. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't be that person. So the only thing left for me to do was to stop being the Clark family's true daughter altogether. Mr. White stared in disbelief. Unbelievable. Who would treat their own biological daughter this way? The world's a big place, Dad. There's no limit to how cruel people can be. I added softly, but whatever happens, we must not let Lorena tell Mom the truth. I'm afraid the shock might be too much for her. Mr. White's face grew serious. His gaze toward me carried deep sympathy. Good child, he said, leave this to me. Since the Clark family didn't treasure you, then from now on, you'll be my daughter, legitimately and completely. I'll make sure your so-called birth father understands that he'll never get you back again. He wrapped his arm protectively around my shoulders and led me out the door. The moment Lorena saw Mr. White, she repeated her accusations word for word. Beside her stood my biological father, Jason Clark, stone-faced, watching silently as Lorena went on and on. Mr. White, she declared confidently, you've been fooled. My sister forged that DNA test. Suddenly, Mr. White cut her off coldly. Who let this mutt bark outside my house? Lorena's voice stopped dead. Jason finally spoke. President White, Shiva couldn't possibly be your biological daughter. I know, Mr. White said calmly. Everyone was stunned when he added, I'm the one who asked someone to forge the test results. What? Jason couldn't believe what he was hearing. Mr. White smirked, eyes full of disdain. President Clark, weren't you the one who liked using a fake daughter as your real one? So I followed your example, why are you so shocked now? Watching Jason's face fall was incredibly satisfying. I couldn't help but pile on. Exactly. Mr. Clark, since you love fake daughters so much, why can't I be Mr. White's fake daughter instead? Jason's expression was even more twisted than when Patrick first heard Edward was my real brother. His fury erupted. President White. Are you seriously joking with me right now? You know Shiva is my biological daughter, and you still plan to host a reunion banquet for her as if she were yours? Mr. White gave him a casual smile. Well, you brought your daughter home 3 years ago and still refused to host one. So I went ahead and hosted it for you. What's your problem? You. Jason's face turned red with rage. President White, don't you think you're going too far? And what if I am? Mr. White's voice was as steady as it was domineering. I will host this reunion banquet. I will tell the world that Shiva is my daughter now. And if Shiva's true identity ever leaks out, Clark family better be ready to face my wrath. Do you think I lack the power to make the Clark family disappear from DC overnight? You didn't want her, but someone else does. You cast her aside, now I'm claiming her, loud and proud. And if you dare not show up at the banquet, prepare for bankruptcy. Now that, President Clark, that is what it means to truly go too far. With those words, he patted my shoulder gently. Come, my precious daughter. It's hot outside, Daddy's going inside to cut you some watermelon. Tears welled up in my eyes. I quickly followed him back inside. But Jason called out behind me. Shiva. Stop right there. Are you really going to disown your own father? I turned around. The look on his face told me he was on the verge of exploding. I was sure he'd scold me as harshly as always. But surprisingly, he swallowed his rage and forced a smile. Come home, sweetie. Didn't you say you wanted a reunion banquet? Fine, I'll host one for you. How insincere that sounded. I said calmly, too late. I don't care anymore. Since you got to choose your daughter, I get to choose my father. You didn't like that I wasn't as obedient and thoughtful as Lorena, right? Well, I don't like that you're not as powerful, capable, and loving as Mr. White. Honestly, nothing feels better than fighting magic with magic. Jason swayed where he stood. For the first time, regret twisted across his face. His voice was low and furious. Such rebellious nonsense. What kind of child dares to disown their own parents? Why not? I sneered. I was just born into the wrong family. That's all. If my parents don't like me, I'll go find some who do. You, Jason was trembling with rage, nearly coughing up blood. After a long silence, he tried one last time, his tone softer. Shiva, I'm your real father. There's no such thing as lasting resentment between father and daughter. Yes, maybe I was too strict. But only because you grew up in an orphanage, no one taught you how to behave. As a parent, I was only thinking long term. I wanted you to grow up refined, well-mannered, like a proper lady. Those words disgusted me. So not being willing to coddle a fake daughter and let her trample me, that makes me unladylike. I laughed, tears spilling down my cheeks as my stomach twisted in nausea. I looked Jason straight in the eyes. Then what we have isn't a petty grudge. It's a hatred deeper than the sea. A hatred of being force-fed dirt, again and again. This will never be resolved, not in this lifetime. Just then, Patrick arrived, his voice panicked and pleading. Dad, stop. Don't you get it? Shiva's heart is already shattered because of us. He rushed over, adopting a tone I'd never heard from him before, soft and apologetic. Shiva, you have every right to be angry. I was wrong. Your brother was blind to your pain, and I want to make it right. Just give me one chance. Come home with me, okay? The White family isn't helping you out of the goodness of their hearts. They must want something in return. I'm afraid they're tricking you. I slapped away the hand he reached out to take mine. Get lost. Where were all of you when I needed you? Without another glance, I turned and followed Mr. White into the villa. I left Edward to deal with the 3 barking dogs at the gate. Later, Edward told me Patrick had stormed off after snarling, "Don't let me find out what you Whites are really after with Shiva." Ms. White's health was worsening. On the morning of the reunion banquet, the pain was so bad she couldn't get out of bed. Even with the strongest painkillers, she curled into herself, trembling from the agony. She coughed up blood. It stained the sheets. Afraid I'd see it, she quietly stripped the bedding and hid it under the bed. I saw Mr. White quietly wiping his tears when she wasn't looking. And Edward? He stood in the yard, silently smoking. But the moment they stepped into her room, they acted as if everything was fine. They calmly discussed the details of the banquet with her, like nothing was wrong. I couldn't bear it any longer. Maybe we should cancel the banquet? I said hesitantly. No. Ms. White immediately sat up and shook her head. I will endure this. I want the world to know, I found my baby girl. And once I'm gone, my old friends will remember that, and they'll look out for you in my place. There's less and less I can do for you now. Please, don't worry about me. I'm not hurting at all. Tears welled up in my eyes, and guilt gripped my heart. I wanted so badly to say, I'm sorry, Mom. I lied to you. I'm not really your biological daughter. But Mr. White gently pressed my shoulder and said, listen to your mom. There's no parent in the world who wouldn't want to proudly introduce their long-lost daughter to others. Well, except for my biological parents. Still, Ms. White insisted on getting out of bed. With a mysterious smile, she said to me, Mom prepared a surprise for you. Want to guess what it is? I couldn't. Until a renowned designer walked in pushing a rack of clothes. Ms. White, our team worked around the clock as per your request. We finally finished 10 sets of matching family outfits. Ms. White beamed as if she were presenting a treasure. Shiva, take a look, do you like them? Choose one. Today, our family of 4 will wear them together. Whatever other daughters have, my precious daughter must have too. I got you the thing you've always wanted, matching family outfits. I widened my eyes in disbelief, and tears spilled out instantly. That evening, while out walking with Ms. White, I had seen another family of 3 wearing matching clothes and felt a deep longing in my heart. Back then, I had used my very first paycheck to buy family outfits for the Clark family, for my father, mother, and brother. But because I didn't include one for Lorena. My mother didn't just refuse to wear it, she threw the entire set into the trash right in front of me. What's this supposed to mean? Are you trying to tell Lorena that we're the real family? You just can't accept her, can you? But it was clearly Lorena who started everything. She had custom-made dishes and cutlery for a family of 4, and mine was always the cheap kind, like a guest's. I was the outsider. When Ms. White saw me crying, she grew concerned. What's wrong, sweetheart? You don't like them? I choked up with joy. I do. Mom, I love them. I want every single set. Ms. White grinned. Then we'll all wear them, our whole family of 4. You 2 boys better not skip. She was looking right at Mr. White and Edward. Edward glanced down at the adorable cartoon characters printed on the shirts, groaned, and rubbed his forehead. Mom, what is this taste? It's going to ruin my cool CEO image. Dad, seriously, what do you think? Mr. White didn't miss a beat. I think your mother has excellent taste. Edward threw up his hands in surrender. You win. I admit defeat. I couldn't help but burst into laughter. And just like that, the whole family laughed together, breaking the heavy gloom that had hung over the White household. The recognition banquet was held at noon, and the venue was packed. I stood proudly between Mr. and Ms. White as they introduced me to guest after guest. My hands ached from accepting so many welcome gifts. The second-generation socialites who used to mock me? Now they followed behind their parents like obedient little lambs. None of them dared to treat me like a nobody anymore. Some even approached me, smiling and flattering. With the White family status in D.C., no one could afford to offend me now. They could only try their best to stay on my good side. Just then, someone announced, Jason Clark and family have arrived. I looked up and saw people rushing over to greet my former family. President Clark, I didn't expect your adopted daughter would turn out to be President White's real daughter. You must be so proud. Mrs. Clark, you really raised a fine daughter for the White family. Patrick, how does it feel? The sister who used to cling to you is now Edward's real sister. Lorena, imagine that, your sister is now the most high-ranking girl in our whole circle. I watched their faces twitch with barely concealed resentment as they forced their most polite, fake smiles. It was the most satisfying thing I had ever seen. Shiva. My mother walked toward me, eyes bloodshot, gazing at me longingly. I nodded politely, looped my arm through Ms. White's, and greeted coldly, Mrs. Clark. I'm your mother. How can you call me Mrs. Clark? I pressed my lips together and said nothing, my gaze cold, my demeanor distant. Ms. White smiled and gently spoke for me. Mrs. Clark, please don't blame Shiva. If anyone's at fault, it's me. I'm selfish and possessive. Now that she calls me Mom, I simply can't bear to hear her call anyone else that. Still, thank you for raising my daughter for 3 years. My birth mother was speechless. Midway through the banquet, Patrick pulled me aside into an empty corridor. Behind him stood those irritating faces, my biological parents, and Lorena. Patrick looked me in the eye and asked, "Is Ms. White in the late stages of cancer? Is she dying?" His words felt like needles piercing my chest. I said nothing, my expression cold. But Patrick, ever perceptive, continued, "She doesn't even know you're not her biological daughter, does she? President White just wanted to fulfill her dream of finding her long-lost child. That's why he found you, to act out the role, right?" Still, I remained silent. Patrick suddenly threatened me. "Fine. If you won't admit it, I'll go tell Ms. White the truth myself." "You dare?" Just imagining how such news could break her already frail body made rage surge through me. I completely lost control and shouted at them, "Didn't you all hate me? Didn't you love Lorena more? Now that I've walked away, why are you still coming after me? You didn't love me, didn't care for me, so why can't you let someone else love me? Did I commit some terrible sin in a past life to be born into the Clark family in this one? Am I only meant to be miserable, never allowed peace? Is it not enough unless I end up like Neza, cutting my flesh for my mother, carving out my bones for my father? Fine. I'll go find a knife and give it all back to you." Mrs. Clark tried to calm me, pulling me into her arms. "Shiva, don't say that. I do love you." I shoved her away, forcing myself not to cry in front of them. "Love? In the 3 years I lived in your house, I bent over backward like a dog for your approval. And Lorena? You kept her on a pedestal. Are you blind? Or is your heart just that twisted? How dare you act like none of that ever happened?" Mrs. Clark tried to defend herself. "But we never let you go hungry or cold." "Shut up. So just because you fed me, I owe you eternal gratitude? Go write your own fairy tale, Mrs. Clark." Just then, I realized, Lorena, who had been standing nearby, was gone. Where's Lorena? Where did she go? Did she go to tattle to Ms. White? Ms. White's body was already at its limit. Today, she had braved the pain of late-stage cancer just to give me a perfect recognition banquet. I absolutely wouldn't allow anyone to hurt her. My heart thundered in panic. I searched frantically, and finally, there she was. Lorena stood in front of Ms. White, clearly speaking to her. My steps faltered. The world seemed to collapse around me. Ms. White saw me too. She waved and beckoned me over. But it felt like my legs were weighed down by lead, each step was painfully heavy. I had just gained a mother who loved me unconditionally. Was it all about to vanish like a dream? Tears spilled down my cheeks. I wiped at them desperately, but they kept coming. I felt so wronged. So helpless. With my head bowed like a guilty child awaiting punishment, I stepped in front of Ms. White. Then I heard her voice, gentle, but laced with unmistakable sarcasm. "Miss Clark, what exactly do you want me to do with this information? Slap Shiva across the face and kick her out of the White family? Unfortunately for you, your perfect plan has failed. I've known for a long time that Shiva isn't my biological daughter. But I chose to love her anyway. I chose this bond between mother and daughter, do you understand?" It was like I had just heard the most beautiful words in the world. I looked up, stunned, my eyes brimming with tears as I stared at Ms. White in disbelief. She reached out and wiped my tears. "Don't cry, sweetheart. I'm not stupid. Of course I knew old White brought you to cheer me up. But you did so well. I truly loved having you by my side." I choked out, "You really knew all along? Then, why?" Ms. White smiled. "Because old White loves me, and I love him. He and Edward wanted me to leave this world without regrets. And I wanted them to believe I really did. That's our little secret, just between us girls. Don't tell old White or Edward, okay?" I nodded hard, tears falling again like a flood. Then Ms. White turned to Lorena and warned sharply, "Miss Clark, you'd better keep your schemes to yourself. This isn't the Clark family. No one bullies my daughter here. If even half a word of what happened today leaks out, you, the so-called real daughter of the Clark family, will lose everything. Try me." So this was Ms. White, kind and warm on the outside, yet when she threatened someone, she was just as formidable as Mr. White. Lorena's face turned deathly pale, like a rat caught in the gutter, thoroughly humiliated. In the distance, Edward was calling us. "Mom." Sis. Dad's about to give his speech, he's asking for you. Ms. White gently took my hand. Come on, my precious daughter. Mr. White stood confidently at the microphone, delivering a passionate speech. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Jason Clark for raising my daughter for the past 3 years. From today on, you won't need to trouble yourselves anymore. Allow me to formally introduce to you all. I, Old White, have finally found my long-lost daughter, Shiva White. Hand in hand with Ms. White, I walked up the stage to thunderous applause. From that moment on, my identity was sealed. I was no longer the unloved foster daughter of the Clark family. I was the true heiress, cherished by the White family. I saw Lorena standing in the crowd, seething with jealousy, but helpless. I also saw my biological parents, looking as if they'd just been publicly cuckolded. It was glorious. And I saw Edward throw an arm over Patrick's shoulders. I didn't know what he whispered, but Patrick's face turned sour, like he was drowning in regret. From that day on, the Clark family seemed to accept defeat on the surface. But behind the scenes, they kept creating coincidental encounters. They tried everything to coax me home. I ignored them. I stayed by Ms. White's side every day, being her thoughtful little daughter. Then one day, Patrick lost it. He publicly exposed Lorena's true identity to everyone in our social circle. He even claimed that the real daughter of the Clark family had been secretly switched at birth by Lorena's biological mother. It was a clear hint at the truth, but he didn't dare point fingers too boldly, fearing retaliation from the White family. Rumor had it that after Lorena's background was exposed, none of the rich second generation wanted to associate with her anymore. She finally got a taste of what it felt like to be rejected and isolated. Patrick even called me afterward, as if expecting praise. Shiva, I did it for you. I've avenged you. Once Ms. White passes, come home, okay? I only found it laughable. The ones who broke my heart were you, your father, and your mother. If you really want to avenge me, then go make them suffer, make them spend their whole lives tormented by guilt. Otherwise, don't even talk to me about revenge. Time flew. A month later, Ms. White's final moment came. The doctor told us gently, now would be a good time to say your goodbyes. She lay weakly in a sunlit room, curled up on a soft chaise under a warm blanket. Mr. White held her gently, letting her lean her upper body into his arms. Edward and I each knelt beside her, just like we'd done countless nights, stargazing at her feet. We tried our best not to cry as we chatted with her about everyday things. Though barely able to breathe, Ms. White still asked Mr. White in a faint whisper, did Shiva's household registration move over from the Clark family? Mr. White's eyes were red. Yes. The Clarks refused at first. I had to apply some pressure to force them to agree. Don't worry. Edward and I will take good care of Shiva. Here, it's the official family registry. Look, Shiva is now listed under our household. That had been Ms. White's dying wish. Just last night, she had whispered to me privately, bias is worse than cancer. It can't be cured. Don't ever count on anyone's remorse, don't believe in the so-called regret-fueled redemption arcs. Even if they come crawling back in regret, it's only because they've lost what they couldn't cherish. They'll try to take you back after I'm gone. And maybe, just maybe, they'll favor the fake daughter again one day. So Shiva, just stay my daughter. I've already told your father, even when I'm in heaven, I'll be watching over you. If they dare mistreat you, I'll cry. And your dad hates seeing me cry. He will bring your registration home. I cried so hard I couldn't even speak. Mom, don't worry. I'll never go back to the Clark family. I'll always be the daughter of the White family. I knew, until her very last breath, she had worried about my registration. She had wanted to shield me, always. When she saw my name on the registry, she smiled. And just like that, she closed her eyes, still smiling. The doctor said, she passed peacefully. You have our condolences. But to me, the whole world had gone dark. I hooked my pinky around hers, refusing to let go. Mom, in our next life, please let me be born from your womb. I don't care. If you don't answer, I'll take that as a yes. Let's pinky promise. For 100 years, we won't change. Mom.